Do you know how many women unknowingly awaken a man's soul? Not through love, but through absence? It's not her softness that haunts him. It's not her sweetness that he cannot forget. It's the way she disappears, leaving him alone with the ghosts he has buried beneath years of ego avoidance and silent shame. Carl Jung once described the dark night of the soul as a sacred passage, a descent into the unconscious, where the false self is dismantled piece by piece. For most men, this descent begins not in meditation nor in therapy, but in the mirror of a woman's mystery. Some women hold up that mirror without knowing it. They enter his life like a symbol, like the anima, Jung's feminine archetype, breathing color into his grayscale world. But then something forbidden happens. She triggers something far more dangerous than desire. She triggers his reflection. And for a man who has spent his life chasing comfort, achievement, or control, reflection feels like death. So he runs, he ghosts, he silences his phone, he distracts himself with trivial pursuits or shallow connections, hoping the ache will fade. But it won't, because the woman who touches his soul is not just another chapter, she is the secret door he wasn't ready to open. When a man meets the woman who awakens his unconscious wounds, the first forbidden moment arrives silently, the moment he realizes she has seen him, not the version he performs, but the fragmented boy underneath, the part he hides, the part he never healed. This is why he obsesses over her after she's gone, not because she is gone, but because she saw too much. Men are taught to chase certainty, to win, to know, to control outcomes and secure approval. But the woman who makes him face his shadow doesn't offer certainty. She offers a riddle, a paradox, love mixed with distance, connection laced with mystery. She becomes the symbol of everything he cannot solve, and the male ego cannot stand an unsolved equation. In that silence, he replays the moments in his mind like an addict chasing a memory. Her last glance, her stillness, the way she withheld reassurance when he demanded it, the way she chose herself instead of explaining her soul to him. This is not cruelty, it is initiation. The man who believes love is about possession will experience her detachment as punishment, but the man on the edge of growth will sense something deeper. This is not rejection, it is reflection. His longing becomes unbearable because he cannot unsee what she revealed. Her absence forces him into the first gate of the dark night, the ego death. He can no longer pretend he is whole. He can no longer distract himself with conquests or accolades. Her silence becomes the mirror where he meets himself naked and unguarded. If you are that woman, know this. Your stillness is not weakness, it is power. It is the soft, silent catalyst for his transformation, but it comes at a cost. For a woman who embodies depth, who carries both love and boundaries in her aura, there will always be men who crumble in her presence, not because she hurt them, but because she awakened the parts they refused to meet. Carl Jung warned that most people will do anything to avoid facing their own soul, but love, real love, is not about sparing someone from that confrontation. Sometimes love is the confrontation. And so she steps back, not to play a game, but to let him meet his mirror without interference. In this withdrawal, the second forbidden moment unfolds. He realizes that no amount of chasing, explaining, or controlling will restore the false comfort he had before her. He has to choose, suppress the longing, or step into the abyss of his own shadow. Most men try to suppress it, but the soul doesn't forget, and so begins the obsession not with her body, not even with her love, but with the unresolved ache she left behind, the ache he must transmute if he ever wants peace. There is a moment, quiet but catastrophic, when a man realizes he cannot return to who he was before her. This is the second forbidden moment in the dark night of the soul. It happens long after she's gone, perhaps weeks, perhaps months. Time becomes irrelevant because the clock doesn't measure wounds of the spirit. At first, he tells himself stories while he convinces himself she was just like the others, so he tells his friends or maybe just himself that he's moved on. that there's another woman, that he's fine. But in the middle of the night, when the phone is silent and the distractions fade, he knows the truth. He did not lose her. He lost the part of himself that was safe from transformation. Carl Jung warned that love is never simple, especially not for the man who has lived too long inside his defenses. When the feminine energy meets the male unconscious, it either nourishes or dismantles him, and often both. Some women trigger his ego. They challenge him in ways he can dominate, debate, or dismiss, but the woman who triggers his soul doesn't argue. She simply vanishes into silence, leaving behind an echo so loud it deafens him. This is why the second forbidden moment is the most dangerous. It's when he realizes he is no longer chasing her, he is chasing himself. He is chasing the version of him she saw beneath the surface. His mind will loop the memory of her, not just her smile or her scent, but the way she looked at him when he spoke of his mother, the way her eyes softened when he tried to act stronger than he was, the way she stayed silent when he expected approval. Her silence was a message. I see you, all of you, and I will not soothe the parts you refuse to heal. For many men, this moment breeds resentment. They will call her cold, they will label her difficult, dramatic, or detached, but beneath the anger, there's a quieter truth. She became the catalyst for his soul's initiation, and he didn't ask for that. No man asks for the dark night of the soul. It comes uninvited, disguised as heartbreak, rejection, or abandonment. But in reality, it's none of those things. It's the collapse of the mask. The Stoics, Seneca, Marcus Aurelius, Epictetus, wrote about this collapse long before Jung. They called it the necessary stripping away of illusions. They knew that the ego resists transformation until suffering forces it open. So what does he do now? Some men run forever, they rebound, they project, they harden their hearts, swearing never to let another woman this close again. But the wiser ones, the few, begin to realize that her silence was not cruelty. It was initiation into something he can no longer deny, his own shadow. He starts to feel it in small ways, in the ache behind his ribcage when he hears a song that reminds him of her. In the moment he reaches for his phone late at night, but stops, knowing she won't respond. In the strange emptiness he feels during shallow interactions, craving something more but unsure how to find it. This is where the spiritual alchemy begins. Her absence becomes his teacher. Her mystery becomes his mirror. The ego shatters piece by piece until he sees the boy inside, the boy who wanted to be loved without conditions, who wanted to be mothered and adored but not truly seen. And now he has been seen, and he cannot unsee it. If you are that woman, the one who triggers his soul rather than his ego, know this. Your silence is not abandonment. It is an invitation for him to meet himself. This is the feminine wound and the feminine gift, to love a man deeply enough to reflect his shadow, but fiercely enough to let him walk his own path toward healing. You cannot do it for him. You cannot save him from the mirror you've become, but you can stand in your worth knowing that obsession is not always about possession. Sometimes it's about awakening. And the man who obsesses over you after you've walked away, he isn't really chasing you. He's chasing the parts of himself you forced him to feel. The third forbidden moment arrives like a storm at midnight, sudden, disorienting, and impossible to ignore. It's the moment he realizes he cannot replace her, not with another woman, not with work, not with distraction, not even with silence of his own. This is the final descent into the dark night of the soul, a spiritual crisis few speak of because it dismantles the very architecture of male pride. It is not about missing her body or longing for her attention. It's about craving the psychological death she triggered but never completed. Carl Jung spoke of this descent as an archetypal confrontation. When a man loves a woman who sees his unconscious, he is forced to meet his own animus and anima, the masculine and feminine energies battling inside him. Most men are terrified of this. They prefer the predictable patterns, dominance, withdrawal, conquest, escape. But the woman who triggers his soul rather than his ego is different. She does not compete for his attention. She vanishes. She becomes the silence he cannot fill. And so he spirals. At first, he seeks replacements, shadows of her, replicas, echoes. He dates women who flatter him, who never challenge his inner world. But every kiss feels hollow. Every new connection feels staged. No woman is her because no woman holds the mirror to his psyche the way she did. That's when the panic sets in, and it's not about her beauty or her charm, it's about the version of himself she awakened. She held space for his grief, but she did not rescue him from it. She allowed him to unravel, but she did not pick up the threads. She listened to his silence, but she did not soften her own boundaries to make him feel safe. In her stillness, he met his mother wound. In her distance, he met his father wound. In her refusal to chase, he met his inner child. This is the dark night of the soul, a psychic fracture that cannot be medicated with logic or numbed with temporary pleasure. It is an existential haunting. You see, for a man to truly fall into spiritual love, he must first lose his illusions of control. He must mourn the fantasy of being worshipped, adored, and constantly forgiven. He must confront the narcissistic wound that tells him he is entitled to comfort without growth. And that is precisely why he obsesses. It's not about her texts. It's not about her body. It's about the role she played in collapsing the scaffold he built around his soul. This is not the obsession of romance novels or movies. This is the obsession of spiritual dismemberment, of realizing he will never be the same, of knowing that if he wants peace, he cannot go backward, only forward into his own shadow. Some men never recover from this. They stay stuck in cycles of bitterness, labeling women dangerous, manipulative, or cruel. But the wise ones, the rare ones, begin to transform. They study their pain. They trace the roots of their triggers. They stop asking, "Why did she leave?" and start asking, "Why did I abandon myself long before she walked away?" And here is where you become something more than the woman he obsesses over. You become the symbolic feminine initiator, the woman he could not possess because you were never meant to be possessed. You were meant to awaken. When you understand this, you stop fearing his obsession. You stop wondering if you should have made it easier for him. You stop blaming yourself for his collapse. Instead, you stand tall in the knowledge that sometimes love is not about keeping a man. It's about forcing him to confront the version of himself he's spent his life avoiding. In Jungian terms, this is the path of individuation, the alchemical transformation of ego into essence. And while it feels cruel in the moment, it is the highest form of love a woman can offer, the gift of not saving him from his own evolution. So what happens next? He will either rise reborn through the ashes of his old self, or he will retreat into comfort, avoiding the lesson. But one truth will remain, burning quietly in his soul. The woman who triggers his dark night of the soul is the woman he can never forget. And the woman who knows her worth doesn't chase, she chooses.